This new year and beyond will bring new gaming adventures, and we have a list of games that, while you might not find them on your usual list, are likely to take you out of your comfort zone when they do arrive. Don't get too comfortable as we bring you a list of 15 horror games of 2019 and beyond. The Last of Us Part 2. With this continuation to the widely lauded The Last of Us, we can expect as much in terms of scares as we will with drama. There was a trailer introduced during E3 2018 to tide-waiting fans, and the game will feature familiar and new elements, continuing the adventures of Joel and Ellie. There's no known release date, and while there has been an Amazon Italy leak showing a release date of March 29, 2019, an astoundingly generous and nearby release schedule, it is better to keep a level head and wait and see. For this writer's part, I would think that a release date would be announced with more time before the release date, and with the intensity of the Paris Games Week 2017 trailer, it looks like we shouldn't expect any edge of the franchise to be lost. Dead Island 2. Remember Dead Island from earlier this decade? Dead Island 2 was announced as far back as 2014. While the first main game used a tropical setting, a fictional island near Papua New Guinea, this game will take place in various locations across California, including Hollywood and San Francisco. The game has changed development hands since its first announcement, with developer Sumo Digital behind Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, Blur, Forza Horizon 2, and 3 now taking the lead. Publisher Deep Silver has had to downplay fears of the game's cancellation since this announcement, and there is no release date announced. But there are still trailers to check out in the meantime, though they are a couple of years old at this point. Someday You'll Return. A new IP, this game is a psychological horror title inspired by Silent Hill, founded on the story theme of retrieving a lost relative. This is the type of plot setup that lends itself to driving horror games, facilitating a sense of fear and anticipation of loss, but also driving the player forward so that they can fight back against both the fear that is articulated through mortal danger in the environments around them and the fear that the person that they are looking for may be gone. It's also a visually impressive game, currently set for release in 2019 on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Days Gone. From the developers of the Siphon Filter series comes Days Gone, a new Sony IP set for release late in April of 2019. You may have seen trailers for it during E3 events of the past 3 years. There's an abundance of gameplay footage to check out online as well. While action is a strong part of the game's experience, horror will still play an important role. A global pandemic has wiped out much of humanity or turned them into zombie-like creatures named freakers, zombies which are described as alive, more intelligent than your typical zombie, capable of evolving. They respond to noise and can be difficult to deal with in crowds, and even animals are infected as well. The life around you is to be feared in this game. The game also features choices that can impact how characters will react and change their behavior. Metro Exodus. Due for release in the middle of February 2019, this is the third game in the Metro series. It's a first-person shooter set in post-apocalypse Russia. As you progress through the cold and abandoned landscapes, expect lots of tension and darkness to heighten the game-playing experience. Danger takes the form of mutants and other non-mutated humans with their own agendas. It is not just the mortal fear that has to be contended with from monsters, but also the political intrigue from other conspiratorial agents taking advantage of the bleak situations in Metro Exodus. The Sinking City. Releasing late March of 2019 and on the Xbox One, PS4, and PC, The Sinking City takes place in the 20s in America, plus a horrific assortment of monsters. Maybe that was just left out of the history books. You play as a private investigator, fighting physically and mentally against the inhuman corruption of the world around you. The city of Oakmont is half submerged, and the minds of its inhabitants are twisted by a nightmare you yourself barely understand and struggle to cope with. This game is all about fear of the inhuman and fear of the unknown. Resident Evil 2. The remake of this PlayStation classic is launching very soon, the end of January of 2019. And while there's much that fans of the original Resident Evil 2 and the less action-oriented, more tense survival horror style of some Resident Evil titles will be anticipating in this game, Resident Evil 2's 2019 version aims to strike a perfect balance for both veterans of the series and newcomers alike, all the while being distinct from simply being another game made in the image of the earliest Resident Evil titles. It will also make use of variations of boss and character encounters too. There will be something new for everybody. World War Z. Based on the 2013 movie, World War Z is a third-person shooter that pits players against hordes of zombies, promising the ability to render hundreds of zombies on screen at once, and is due for release sometime in 2019. This game is an adaptation of the film, so it will be fun to see the ways in which the game and the movie differ and stay the same. The game can also be played with up to 4 players in an online cooperative mode, and presents players with 6 different character class options that are highly specialized and serve different roles, including a medic, a melee-focused class, and a tank type of class. The Dark Pictures Anthology, Man of Medan. From the creators of Until Dawn is the Dark Pictures Anthology, an episodic project in collaboration with Bandai Namco, the first game of which is titled Man of Medan, and will release sometime next year. Man of Medan boasts multiple possible endings, and your actions as the protagonist dictate the fate of the many lives you encounter in the game. Taking place in a small dive boat originally meant for a party seeking a lost warship, the plans of the young people on board are abruptly turned over when hit with an unexpected storm. Trapped on an apparently haunted ship, now these adults fight for their lives, making pivotal choices along the way. The stress of the ship's haunts and the moral dilemmas regarding others' lives are the source of tension for this game. The Maid of SKER. An adaptation of a British book trilogy published in the late 19th century, The Maid of SKER is a first-person survival horror game set in a Welsh hotel, the SKER House. This game will heavily emphasize atmosphere, featuring a strong sense of foreboding and darkness, but also promises lots of violence and gore. It's the type of horror that most people can readily identify with and understand, and fear. The plot itself revolves around the story of Elizabeth Williams, who was locked in the house by her father to prevent her from eloping with the man she loves. You play as that man, a harpist named Thomas Evans. The trappings of horror with a bit of romance, and hopefully not tragedy for the player. Death Stranding. The much-hyped Hideo Kojima-led title doesn't have a known release date, and would seem to primarily feature action gameplay, but some of the trailers that we have seen indicate that horror could inform the gameplay experience. It's rather interesting considering that in 2017 Hideo Kojima denied that Death Stranding is a horror game, but cinematic trailers feature gargantuan monsters, and the desolation and the lack of life often seen throughout trailers alongside the sheer surrealism could very well create something horrific for players. Stranger Things 3: The Game. Stranger Things 3: The Game is a mobile game inspired by the 3rd season of the popular and terrifying television show Stranger Things. Recently announced during this year's The Game Awards, it is the 2nd mobile game developed by Bonus XP for the franchise. While the first mobile game was based on the 1st season of the show, this game is based on the 3rd season and should be releasing alongside it. The games are pixel-based, 16-bit action titles, and Stranger Things 3: The Game will feature multiple characters, as did the previous game. Close to the Sun. Another horror game that takes place on a mysterious ship. There is something to the isolation of ships, separated from civilization, contained, and creating a sense of claustrophobia that easily fits in with the horror genre. Taking place on a ship complex created by Nikola Tesla, his monuments to the pursuit of knowledge seem foreign and threatening, and the images that seem to celebrate him throughout the game are more unsettling than inspiring. But scenes of stabbings, blood, and brains are less ambiguously threatening and unsettling. You play as a journalist named Rose seeking her sister, but will clearly get more than you bargained for in this game. Silver Chains. Silver Chains is a newly announced first-person horror game releasing in the spring of next year, coming to PC, Xbox One, PS4, and the Switch, the latter of which some of the other games on this list will not be releasing on. The protagonist, Peter, wakes up from an accident in a mansion in England, but the truth of his circumstances here are increasingly frightening. Is he really alone? And why does it seem that this is not his first time at the mansion? This game emphasizes exploration and atmosphere, the darkness of the night and the fear of the unknown. The dedication to realism will only heighten the sense of tension that players are set to experience. DAYMARE 1998. A third-person survival horror game made by a team of Italian developers who previously sought to make an independently developed remaster of Resident Evil 2, the scrapping of that project would lead to the creation of DAYMARE 1998. The developers have a deep appreciation for the classical style of survival horror that the earlier Resident Evil games trailblazed. Though the Kickstarter for this game was canceled earlier this year after failing to meet their goal, the project is now set for release across PC, Xbox One, PS4, and possibly via Switch. Daymare 1998, with a current release date of second quarter 2019, is as much a story of game development triumph as it is a modern love letter to horror games of the past. And that is our list of 15 horror games of 2019 and beyond. Let us know which games you are afraid of playing on our list here. Surely there is something that seems scary. And if not, which games do you think you are up to the challenge of completing? As always, thanks for watching. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.